Part 17 of the series is now available for viewing on my backup channel, which is on BitChute. You can pause and read. There's all the information. Female informant discovered in Moscow, idaho4 case. Real story revealed. This was posted in the comments section of a video on YouTube for the podcast, and it describes a female informant in the idaho4 case, and this is their story. Now, the topic that I want to talk about refers to the informant, the process or the job of being or the responsibility of being an informant during a case like this. Okay, this posting talks about how there's a female informant, and that also alludes to BK being an informant, either for the feds or for the LE, we don't know. But basically, they're working, quote, working. To be an informant, I was doing some research on it. You're basically working off, quote, working off your charges, whatever you were charged for, to work it off so that way you don't have, you basically then your rap sheet is clean, your record's expunged, you don't have any felonies or anything on there. But being an informant isn't like an easy task. And I've done some videos about this in the past where how like the LE and the feds will prey on a lot of times kids, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, teenagers, really young adults that don't want their lives destroyed. So they're convinced then by their handlers in the LE or the feds to go in these dangerous situations where they really don't have much protection. They don't have their own weapons. Their handlers really aren't watching them that or supervising them that closely. And they don't take responsibility if something goes awry. You don't hear about a lot of these stories in the news when the informant situation goes out, and is recording stuff or whatever, gathering intel, and then they end up unalived, seriously injured for life, traumatized for life. But it happens. So if BK was an informant, that means he was working off something. So he must have been caught with products at some point, and in order to keep his reputation intact, he decided to be an informant. Then same with the female informant, probably a college-age student who was caught too many times, didn't want to have, felony charges for possession or distribution, and so decided to be an informant, to hang out at the house, gather intel on what was going on in terms of the products, the rug sales, the carpet sales, the distribution line, who's involved, where they're getting the products from, how they are selling them, and all that. And then that intel is obviously going back to someone else, the LE or the feds. Now, I posted this article here, which is pretty horrific. It's pretty recent, within the last year. And you're going to have to pause and read on your own because it's horrific. But it's about a female informant. Very similar to this case. She has a problem. She's trying to work off her charges. So she is sent by her handlers in the LE to go into this house where there's products and stuff. And she's trying to gather intel on one of the individuals, and she ends up becoming a victim of a severe crime. Now, her handlers take no responsibility for it, and it's just like, whatever. That's just part of being the informant. You're taking a risk, or you can take the other risk and go through the trial process and then hope you don't get convicted and have to do time. They really catch you, these individuals who are down on their luck, especially an addict, to get them to go in these situations. Now, we don't know who that female informant is, and we're not 100% sure that that's true. But let's just say, for argument's sake, it is true. There's a female informant going into that house, the King Road house, has to pretend like they're just a regular person. They're befriending everyone, they're gathering intel, they're feeding the intel back to their handlers. They're taking a risk every day. Because once they get caught, what happens? When your cover's blown, that's when bad stuff happens. And that's when a lot of these informants become unalived. And if you just do a quick Google search on, informants in these types of cases, it doesn't end well for them. And it kind of makes you wonder who would be the female informant. And, this is just one of my speculations, okay? I'm just going to put it out there. But 2 weeks before the unalives, there are a lot of different sources saying that DM and Kay had a major fight 2 weeks before the unalives. Major fight. And it was over the products being in the house. And Kay had moved out, and she had said she went to the LE, speculation, and according to this post, she went to the LE to explain that she was going to the feds and she was going to take her information to the feds. So that's a motive, because that could destroy DM's life if she's like the main distributor in that house. And Kay moved out. She's far away from all that. But then DM contacts her to be her +1 for the formal for that Friday night. So Kay rolls into town after being gone for a while. Then she's unalived literally the next day. She goes to the formal Friday night, and there's that party afterwards. And then Saturday, she's out with her friends. She has a good time, comes home at 2 o'clock, and then bam, the unalives happen. Now, what are the odds of that happening? Very slim. Someone had to have known that she was going to be there. Someone had to have known what time she was going to be there at her house, and that she was going to be there all weekend and not just stay for Friday night and go home. Nevertheless, we don't know who the female informant is. But I'm just pointing out the fact that being an informant isn't just like an exciting thing to do. It's a dangerous position to put someone in. And they wouldn't do that on their own. They do it because they need to work off charges, because they don't want felonies on their record. And so an addict or someone like a college student is put in a pretty rough spot, because both options, going to court is horrible and losing and then doing time. But then being an informant in a situation like this where you could be outed, or you're going to go tell your handlers, look, this is what's going on, and then it's found out later, bad things could happen. So I just wanted to point out here about being an informant, because this post, basically describes BK and this other female as informants. And they probably knew about each other. Maybe they were working together. We don't know. But we also have to entertain the possibility that these two informants had their cover blown. And they were sharing information with the feds. It was discovered. And that's a motive. That's a strong motive to get rid of those two, quote, witnesses, so they can't testify in a trial and ruin these other people's lives. Now, let's just say DM and her BF, QK, even though he was in Boise that night and has an alibi, pictures of him on Instagram and on Snapchat of him being in Boise 5 hours away. But that doesn't mean he didn't know and didn't help plan with DM. But in any case, there is a strong motive here for DM to get rid of them if someone like Kay was planning to go to the feds.